Hello, hello, hello. My apologies if you can hear the air conditioner, but I was sitting here waiting for something, and I decided to turn the camera on and discuss something I've been thinking about a lot lately, right? I don't know. Sometimes when I go through different phases, you gotta excuse me, I'm scratching because the parking garage I've been parking in has mosquitoes in it. I was like, why do I feel like I've been bit, right? Mosquitoes. So anyway, I was thinking about something the other day along the lines of feeling emptiness, right? I know that I'm not the only one to experience this sort of thing because, well, feeling empty is very common, especially when we place too much on an outer circumstance often. And even sometimes when we achieve those goals or we get those items or we create that situation or we go on that big, whatever it is, there can be an emptiness that comes after it, right? There's even an emptiness that comes after doing things for other people. A lot of people think that, being selfless is something that you can avoid that with, but that's not always the case. It's like sometimes it's more exciting to think about the thing and to receive the thing, and then to have the thing is like meh, you know what I mean? Depending on what it is and who you are, right? And then sometimes we have these experiences that we want to have, and we expect a certain outcome from it. We expect a certain we have certain expectations, which is attachment, and which is the reason why the emptiness comes, right? We expect certain outcomes from it, and then when we don't experience those things, it can be very, it can be like a sucker punch, right, into the gut, because we spend so much time doing the mundane stuff, like, the getting up, brushing your teeth, going to work, exercising, putting on workout clothes, taking a shower, all these little things. We kind of do the same things 90-something% of the time, right? And so sometimes in our lives, we're working up to these places to where we want to do something, experience something, have something, or be something. And once we achieve that thing, or once that thing is handed to us, it doesn't always feel the way that we think it's going to feel, right? It can feel very, very empty. And this is not to say that the emptiness comes from, well, you were focused on the wrong thing. You were too focused on yourself. You were too focused on your kids. You were too focused on, being the brightest light in the room. You were too focused on solving the problem. It's easy to say that we're too focused on something really specific, but as human beings, it's not realistic to not be focused on a really specific goal and outcome, and then like how you would like to see this thing, right? And I'll give an example of that. Say you are in a position or something, you're in a role in a workplace, and you completely and utterly hate the role. You can't stand it, but of course we live in a slave wage society. So, if you have anybody else to take care of besides yourself, you may stick in those places a little bit longer. Oh, AC going into my eyes, burns. You may stick in those places a little bit longer. And so sometimes when we're doing these things and we're trying to work it out, and then we finally get a breakthrough in those areas, we think it's going to be this big exhale that we believe it's going to be. And sometimes it's not there. Sometimes the weight of the situation and the weight of how impactful it was and the weight of how long it took really, really settles deep into us, right? Especially if you go through a series of losses, right? And when I say losses, maybe it was things that you didn't even want to keep. It really doesn't matter whether you want to keep them or not. But if it feels like a loss, then it feels like a loss. If we go through a series of losses, like, something was supposed to turn out a certain way and it didn't. We were supposed to get this position and we didn't. We were supposed to be with this person for the rest of our lives and it didn't work out. We were supposed to live in a certain place and, our livelihood had us, relocate. Whatever it is, it was supposed to be a certain way and it didn't happen that way. sometimes we meander our ways out of these situations and we think, oh man, and we kind of reflect on it. And then at the end of the day, you realize it's like, I still feel so heavy. I feel so heavy. I feel like this energy has settled itself in me in a place where I don't have access to pull it out, right? It's kind of like cobwebs or something, like, you know, mold or mildew. It's like it left some deposits inside of you. And while you want to break free and feel good and relax and expand and grow and float, right? And flow and be in alignment, there's parts of you that are still hanging on to something. And even if you're psychologically, you're mentally not hanging on to it, the trauma of this situation that you've experienced is still very prevalent, right? It's still there. And this is not to say that it means you want to return to any situations, right? Because generally that's not the case. I'm not huge on returning to anything. I always feel like if something was supposed to go bye-bye and it went bye-bye, then it's okay if it went bye-bye. You know what I mean? That means that I'm just in a different place. I must be vibrating on another frequency. I must be heading to another direction. I must be creating another, you know, experience that I'm supposed to have for whatever reason. But it does not change the weight of the environment, right? And especially if you spend your time, if you hang in places and you spend your time around people who are relegated to mediocrity, they are comfortable in mediocrity, they're comfortable in brokenness, they're comfortable in like mental slothness. That's the best word I have for it today. My brain's not ticking quite right. I've been talking to quite a bit of people today, so no telling what that energy is. And so like you relegate yourself to these places, that stink will hang on you. It will attach itself to you. It will become a part of you in some kind of way, and you have to actively flush it out, right? One of my biggest things that I do not care for in general in life is just being comfortable with mediocrity. Now, if other people do that, I don't care. You know, it's not my life. I don't judge other people who want to be mediocre unless they try to push their mediocrity onto me and tell me I'm doing too much, as I've been told several times in my life. And I'm just like, hey man, do what you do and I'll do what I do, right? I'm doing too much only means that what I'm doing is making you feel insecure because you may feel like you're doing too little, you know? And I've experienced that over and over again, and you'll probably experience that too. Like, I know I can sense some hateration from a mile away. Like, I don't even spend my time on it. That's how easy it is for me to, you know, if you're not coming around in full support and your words don't sound like, hey, let me teach you this, so let me show you this to build you up, I can smell it, I can feel it a mile away, right? And I think the last time I fell for a person around me that really didn't have my best interests at heart, that was pretending like it, was only because I was in a certain state of mind at that particular time. But the whole time, because I think about these things and I teach this stuff and I talk about it and I share information about it, I'm thinking the whole time, like, this is not support. This is not positive reinforcement. This is not love and appreciation. But sometimes I watch and I see if people are going to evolve and change or grow. And it's easy for me to do that because then I can get unemotionally attached to it and then see if the growth will happen. A lot of times we're too emotionally attached, and when that growth in the other person is not happening, we'll let that person stifle us or hold us back because we are too attached to them emotionally, right? So I'll do another video on this, but it's a very good tool to know how to detach yourself emotionally from other people. And I'm not saying like, don't ever let anybody in, don't ever let anybody close. You have to be careful about who you let behind that wall. Some people don't get let behind because they're showing too much ugliness, or they're showing too much hatred, or they're showing too much pettiness, you know? And they might try to convince you, or you just don't know how to care. You don't know how to love. You don't know. And I'm like, yes, I do. But it's saved for places and people and things where I know my love and appreciation and what I'm given is being valued. That's where it's saved, right? So sometimes people that complain that they don't get it is because they don't appreciate the value. And you have to know how to emotionally detach so that you're not sucking it in, right? And so sometimes we fall short when it comes to the emotional detachment, right? Especially if we're in places where we feel like we've been mistreated or misunderstood or we've been done wrong, right? I can think of things right now from 20 years ago that can immediately flash me back to that heifer. Easily, right? And sometimes that's just what it is, right? But then a part of me goes, hey, they're not worth it. That person isn't worth it. That situation isn't worth it. You know, that environment isn't worth it. Don't put yourself in that bitter, mental, or resentful state for something that happened 20 years ago, even though you may have never been validated for that situation. You may have never, you know, gotten the redemption you wanted in the situation, right? Or, you know, it was glossed over. But when we leave those things and environments, a lot of times you're like, woo, so happy, got that out of my, these people, places, things, I got it out of my way, but whatever. But they've damaged, they've caused, that environment, that situation, it's caused some damage. And if we don't realize that, we can get caught up in the trauma of it and then sometimes turn bitter, right? Turn bitter, get resentful, and just start feeling like, hey, this didn't work out for me, that didn't work out for me. Damn it, this world's against me. Damn it, these people are against me, right? And then you start focusing on the wrong things. You start focusing on the people and how they're not showing up for you, as opposed to how the Creator is showing up for you, right? As opposed to the universal laws, right? As opposed to showing up for yourself, right? Because you're so outwardly focused thinking, hey man, this is bothering me. That means I have to solve something there. And most of the time, yeah, that's probably true, but the solving is going to have to come from within you. Because a lot of times you won't ever get that complete. Okay, so my video stopped. I really don't even know where it stopped, right? Maybe that's good. Maybe that other stuff was a ramble. I think it stopped when I was trying to fix my camera from falling down. But I think I can kind of remember a lot of what I was saying just now. When you're in these environments or people around people or places, a lot of times they create a heaviness inside of us that we don't actually address fully, right? We don't actually give ourselves permission to reflect and say, hey man, that situation really damaged me in a certain kind of way. It turned off a light in me that I want to turn back on, right? And sometimes so I look at it, think about it like this, because you know I'm a computer person. You know, if you look at a motherboard or a circuit board or something like that, you got a series of switches, right? And how computers work, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, right? Everything is ones and zeros. Either it's on or it's off. And a series of on and offs is what make, a piece of data. We'll say that, right? So if you think about yourself in that way, you have all of these light switches that are turned on, like happiness, joy, freedom, romance, love, appreciation, gratitude, abundance, right? And then there are situations where you can experience certain things and say it's romance or whatever, and it was a very negative experience, and while you got out of it and you may become a better person, all of it, but your switch for that has been turned off. And you're thinking like, man, I don't even think about romance anymore. I don't even think about this kind of stuff. And it's mostly because you haven't really allowed yourself to clean out the situations or the traumas that truly left this negative stink on you, right? And I was explaining a metaphor. It's like, I listen to a lot of gurus, and I have in the past. A lot of people are like, mind over matter, and all these kind of things, and tap into your spiritual self and reflect on who you are, these sort of things, and go within. And while I believe all those things are wonderful, I know that if I'm standing in a room that's full of smoke and something is on fire, if I don't get out of that room, I'm going to die from smoke inhalation, right? Another option is to hold my breath, right? How long can you hold your breath, right? Another option is to create some type of apparatus or situation to where you can cocoon yourself or create a bubble around yourself to where you're not negatively impacted by the environment, right? But sometimes we're not able to do any of those things, and like getting out of it is the best situation, is the best decision for that situation. And knowing these things, you have to remember that we're not always perfectly clear on what type of deposits were left inside of us from other people. So while we move on and we go do other things and we create life and all that, think about to yourself, what switch have you allowed somebody, some situation to turn off? And how can you turn that switch back on, right? How can you get back in charge of that aspect of who you are? A lot of people go hardcore in corporate environments and work 9 to 5s. And they work the 9 to 5 so long to where every bit of their clarity in their mindset, in their freedom about who they are is damaged, right? And so you ask them, you know, the light of creativity has been turned off. The light of freedom has been turned off. The light of abundance has been turned off. And then you're like a shell of yourself just operating in a space that doesn't even allow you to fully expand and be the best version of who you are, right? So we just have to be mindful of the environments and places and the experiences where we have completely allowed those bitterness and resentments to sort of sit in there, because if you don't check it, it can stay. And I think the older we get, and I'm not saying you have to be really old, I'm just saying the older we get in general, you have to purposely go out and find ways to turn those switches back on, right? Like, they don't just happen because, you know, forgive and forget. You know, when you're younger, you kind of just let things go a lot more, I feel like. And you move on, you make new friends and stuff. But sometimes when you experience so many losses or so many disappointments in a row, those things can kind of stay with you. And you may not feel like, oh, I can conquer the world anymore. You may lose a bit of that I can conquer the world in you, because you've ran into so many environments where people and places and things were telling you you're not it, you're not valuable, and you can't conquer the world, and go sit down and shut up, you know? You might even been in relationships with people who were telling you to doubt yourself every 5 minutes for any achievement or accomplishment you wanted to create, right? I've experienced that a lot. When you're a person that has a lot of dreams and desires and goals, and you really believe in yourself and you're confident in your belief, believe me, you're going to run into a lot of people, especially in relationships, that are going to try to tear you down a little bit. And they want to tear you down just so they can, you know, level the playing field to some sort of way, right? This is my thought process when it comes to people and how they treat you. Whether or not, okay, let me think, so I can say this clearly. A person's ability to talk you up or to talk you down says exactly more about who they are than it says about who you are. So it's like if you run into people and they're telling you things, even if it's correction, even if it's, you know, constructive criticism, even if it's those things, you still should walk away and feel like, dang, they're being honest with me, but they really want to see the best in me. They really want me to give my all. They really want me to step it up. They really want me to shine, right? And what I'm doing now might be good, but it's just not great. And they were honest enough to tell me that, right? That person is already up. They're up. They don't need to tell you anything negative with any negative intent, because they're already up. What they're telling you is strictly because they believe in you, and they believe in humanity, and they believe in the strength of humanity, right? Then there are people and places and situations that you run into where people pretend like they're giving you this criticism because they want to see you do better. But if you pay close attention, the criticism is to level you off. It's to bring you to a space where they can be comfortable with dealing with you, right? It's to take you down a peg or two so that they can be comfortable with interacting with you. So you'll notice when you walk away from those environments with dealing with those people that you feel heavy. You don't really feel like, okay, I got some information, now I can go make this work. You feel like, damn, I really was thinking too much of myself. I really was thinking I was great and I don't really have the tools to get this thing done. You know, if I went on with the majority of people tried to tell me about what I couldn't do and what I was trying to create or what I was trying to develop, oh my God, I'd be nowhere. I'd be still, you know, what is it? I can't even think of anything, but I'd be still in a place just drudging around trying to make the best of the day, right? Trying to, you know, have fun on the weekends because my life is just that crappy. But because I never let these people get in my head, right? And I'm telling you, people that are very intimate people. A lot of people think these are like outsiders and stuff like, nah. The outsiders are the ones that's going to talk you up the most, I feel like, right? Romantic relationships has been a very deep source of manipulation and, what is it called? Manipulation and belittling for me. It's been my biggest source of it, right? I can't really tell you, but anybody or any relationship or something I've been in where the person wasn't trying to knock me down to some degree or wasn't trying to make me feel less than what I was, right? It just wasn't what it was. And because I'm just not built like that, they don't work, right? And even when I tried to shrink myself and try to be less, and this is never what I'm telling anybody they should do. This is past. This is not who I am today, right? It wasn't enough anyway, because they already knew that I felt great about who I was on the inside. People know when they don't break your spirit. They know when they haven't broken your spirit. And when they know that, they're never going to be content with that. They're going to keep on trying. They're going to keep on working on it. They're going to keep on doing it. Or they'll take the hint and then hit the road and then move on with their lives, right? But what I'm saying is that those type of things can make us put up walls and these unnecessary, you know, fences around who we are. And then we don't experience the fullness of life because some bum came around and told us, came around and told us that we didn't know how to write. You're like, really? Right? This is a long time ago. I was with a dude that said that to me once. Like, how can you gain anything out of telling me that I can't write? Wrote 7 books after that guy. What I mean is, it's like, you can't let people get in your head, but at the same time, when you're in situations and environments, they can't infiltrate your spirit. They can infiltrate your body and cause trauma responses, right? They can't infiltrate that. And when that negative energy does infiltrate, we can't walk away and just think like, oh, I'm just going to figure this out. I'm just going to keep on going. We have to pay attention. What light switches have you turned off, right? Take out a pen, take out a piece of paper and say, hey, man, I don't feel joy in this anymore. I don't feel freedom anymore. I don't even know how to look for freedom. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how to find my identity. Because if you're not paying attention to that stuff, you'll just be molded by what everybody else is trying to fit you in from the outside, right? So anyway, I've sat in the parking lot at Whole Foods long enough. I don't even think I need anything out of Whole Foods. Right? I just wanted to just sit here and kind of just chat. And what's so crazy is that I've been experiencing a situation to where the people in the environment were so low level that they were trying to drag me down to the low level of mindset and thinking that they were. And it's not my life. That's not my life, right? But because I had been in that situation, in that environment for such a while, I was noticing the heaviness was sitting on top of me. even when I wasn't in around, right? Sitting at the desk and sitting in the environment. Like, I haven't even made a lot of videos lately, for the most part, you know, because the heaviness has been sitting from this space, right? I'm like, man, I was mistreated, misunderstood. I ain't nobody's victim, but God damn it, that wasn't right. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the people are losers. And I'm not saying that to belittle anyone. All of their behavior was petty. All of their behavior was untrustworthy. And all of their behavior was on a loser level. And they lacked complete and utter accountability. And so when I sit and I think about this stuff, it's like it gnaws at me a bit. And then I got to come to and say, hey, well, you didn't fall for it. You didn't become a part of the problem. You didn't add to it and then allow yourself to be taken over by the nonsense, right? But at the same time, because you sat in it before you realized you were being manipulated and mistreated and misunderstood and mistrusted, you turned off some switches, right? You turned off your hope, maybe, possibly, right? You turned off your creativity. You turned off your gratitude for a minute, right? Just for a moment, you might have turned it off. And so, you know, I guess I can ramble about this forever, but just notice when you've been deposited into negatively, and because we'll take these negative deposits and bring them in environments where people don't deserve it, right? They don't deserve that energy. So just be mindful and be careful about your environment. Be careful about the people. Be careful about what you're coming in contact with. And then be careful about the deposits they leave on the inside of you, right? Because let me tell you, if I can think all the way back to being in high school and the way that teachers interacted with me about what my future was going to be, I'm more successful than every teacher that's ever taught me. And every last one of them that had something negative to say actually believed that they were right when they were talking to me, right? I had one teacher that had my sister in one of her classes, and my sister was like an straight A student. And, you know, she's a bit older than me, but she remembered like 7 years. But we lived in a smaller kind of a town, and, you know, outside of New Orleans, it was a smaller suburb. And so they knew the whole family. And I got a last name that won't quit. So, you know, if you hear that last name, you're going to know it's one of us. And so she thought that she was going to get a little carbon copy. And I was not that. I wanted to know why about everything. I wanted to know what's the necessity of this. I was that annoying ass high school student who was really trying to figure out how come these people don't seem smarter than me, but they're telling me what to do with my life. Hardcore. Heavy on the how come they're not smarter than me, but they're telling me what to do with my life, right? But instead of trying to lift me up, they were just trying to belittle me. And even as a 16-year-old, 15-year-old kid, I clocked it. And I was like, nah. If I believed anything of what any of these people told me about what I was not going to be successful, you're not going to be successful if you're always acting so independent. You're not going to be successful if you never learn how to do this. You're not going to be successful if you don't take calculus, all these things. Ha! So that's what I'm saying. Like when I was younger, they couldn't deposit anything on me. They just was like, you know, chicken heads. And I was like, whatever, right? But what I do know is that I graduated high school with a 1.6 something GPA. A lot of people don't even know that. 1.6 something GPA. And as you can see, it wasn't because I wasn't intelligent. It was just lack of support for education and all that. So when I went to college, I really had an uphill climb. Huge uphill climb. Remedial courses and everything. And when I tell you that it's 5 degrees later, I can't even believe that I'm the same person. But I know that I was, because at the time, I just wouldn't let them deposit that negative energy into me. I was like, I don't like your life, so how are you going to tell me what kind of life I can create? And also, too, how do you know what kind of jobs are going to be available? You don't, the way that they spoke, I knew it wasn't even possible, right? So what I'm saying is that you can't let these people turn off these lights inside of you. They're turning it off inside of you because they turned it off in themselves a long, long time ago. You got to pay attention. You got to fight back the desire to be resentful and bitter and give them that energy. You got to rise above, and you got to find a way to feel good about your life and who you are and where you're at. And you got to find a way to create a plan, to create a goal, to expand yourself, to always be thinking and growing and developing. Because there are so many people and places and environments that are always going to be looking to tear at you and to deposit some negativity into you or to turn off one of those switches, you know? And what you need to understand is that you're in control of it and you have the last say. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.